All right, so why don't we get started, and we'll see as people join in. I think I know all of you, but I am Jessie Mahoney, for those of you who don't know me. And this is going to be a relatively informal discussion. Though I think I'll talk probably more than I usually do and do a little less coaching, but we'll see how it goes. I always like to start with a bit of mindfulness just to have folks take a moment to breathe and settle in. So if wherever you are, you can find a comfortable seat and ground your sit bones into whatever you're sitting on. And if you can, bring both feet to the floor. If you're in bed on the East Coast, you don't have to do that. I give you permission to just luxuriate wherever you are. But if you can, grow your spine long and tall out of your sit bones up towards the sky and reach the crown of your head towards the sky. And close your eyes for a moment. And just focus on your breath. Just for a few minutes, finding a place to land. And find a little spaciousness in your chest. You can rest your hands lightly on your thighs, whatever's comfortable for you. And lengthen your inhale and lengthen your exhale. Just notice how that feels, breathing in and breathing out. Notice your chest rise and fall with each inhale and each exhale. And notice perhaps any tingling in your fingers and your toes. And just an easefulness that maybe is spreading throughout your chest for those of you that had a busy, long day doing something else. Can you come back into your body here and into this space and into this moment and just be present here with whatever is, whatever you're bringing to this moment in time, in this situation, perhaps just a curiosity. And as you sit there, I was going to share some thoughts. These are two blog posts that I wrote recently on this topic. And so just to reflect on them as we get started. Where is the grass greener? Not necessarily on the other side, or with a different partner, or with one who behaves differently, loves differently, parents differently, or has different expectations. The grass is greener where you water it. What does watering the grass look like? Being mindful, pausing and being present, noticing and being aware, choosing with intention how you want to show up and proceed, allowing imperfection and humanity, showing grace and compassion for yourself and for others, looking for what works, seeing where you have a connection and how your partner does show love, even if you think it looks different than it should. From here, it is easier to see a path forward. Watering the grass and looking on the bright side and appreciating what you have also does not mean that you don't make changes or shouldn't choose something different. A new relationship, moving, growing, changing, can be what you want and can be what serves you best. Creating something new can be amazing. When you've watered your grass, accepted the situation as it is, and see the beauty in the mess, sometimes you decide you want something different for yourself or for your life. Sometimes, something different serves you or the world better. Sometimes making a change is what love and compassion would do. A new path is not necessarily an easier path or a happier path. It is just a different path, a different mess to find beauty in. Making a change is not necessarily a failure of managing your mind, or a failure of a relationship, or a failure to make something work. It's not necessarily escaping or running away or rejecting something. It's a choice. just like not making a change is also a choice. Coaching and mindfulness don't tell you to just be happy and see rainbows everywhere. They help you choose your choice with conscious intention, and then to choose your experience of whatever choice you make. So lengthen your inhale and let out a huge exhale. And slowly open your eyes and let the light back in. And we will get started. So this idea of when to change your thoughts, and I just said versus when to make a change. And I think they're not actually either or, because you have to do the work on your thoughts before you make a change. And so the question is really when to make a change. But I wanted to focus a bit on, I think people really jump to, what do I need to fix? What do I need to change? And many of us just want to change things to feel better. And so what I like to focus on in coaching is really how you want to feel in the future. And as those of you, I see a lot of you who coach with me. So the idea of finding calm and contentment and clarity and peace, and if that is what you want to feel, sometimes that's changing your thoughts. Sometimes that is making a change. So you have to start with, I like to say, the mindfulness piece, and that's why I started with that. You have to be mindful of what is and what's happening, and noticing and being aware of not just what is in terms of maybe what your job is or what your relationship is or what the circumstance is, but what you're thinking about it and what you're feeling about it. So for those of you who have been involved in coaching, and I think most of you have, that would be a version of the model, depending on what coaching philosophy you come from. And so taking the time to stop and look at all of the parts of your life and be patient and breathe. And even Brooke Castillo talks about not jumping too fast to fix something. So you don't have to fix your thoughts or your circumstances to start. You actually just have to be mindful and see them. And when you jump to fix them or jump to make a decision, you don't necessarily end up where you want to end up. So although I talked about changing your thoughts, she talks about in a podcast that I 100% think you should all listen to if you're interested in this topic. It's called Changing Your Life or Changing Your Feelings. And so she talks about the feelings. And I like to coach, as I always say, from the feeling line, because the feeling is what drives our actions and what drives our experience of life and our results. And so noticing how you feel and what are the thoughts that are leading you to feel that way. And also realizing we usually want to change something because it will make us feel better. And so if you're wanting to change it to feel better, you really need to look at why you want to change it. Because our goal, as most of us want to feel better, and the goal of life is not actually to always feel better, but to have a full spectrum experience, to feel better and worse and grow. And if you don't change your thoughts and your feelings before you make a change, you're just going to bring your same head and your same thoughts and your same feelings to the next situation, and the change won't solve the problem. So that's where taking the time and really connecting into what you feel and feeling it is the answer to making a good decision about whether to change it. So the other parts that I like to dig into when thinking about this issue is clarifying your priorities and really writing down like 1 to 4 or 5, what are your priorities? And you can use those to help you filter your decisions and whether to make a change. And I also really think it's important to look at them and make sure that you have a life that's in alignment with it. And sometimes it's your thinking, but often when you look at priorities, it really clarifies what you want and why. And if the why is just to change how you feel in terms of changing what you want, that's not necessarily going to be helpful. But if the why is that you really want something different in your life, perhaps you want to spend more time with your children, or you want to learn something new, or you want to live in a different place for a certain reason, then that is very different than just wanting to feel better and thinking that if you move to San Diego, you will feel better. If you have some other very specific reason, and that will actually change other things, that can be really helpful. So I find it really helpful to sort of thought download about what you want and why. And I always make it clear with people I work with, it's also what you actually want as opposed to what you think you should want, because a lot of what we think we want is actually what we think we should want, and we don't actually want it. Or we want it because of how we think it will make us feel, but not necessarily what we want. And what do you want to create, or who do you want to become? Because I often get stuck in these models of like, oh, if we just change our thinking, that doesn't necessarily allow you to grow, and you want to grow. And so sometimes changing your thoughts is the growth, and sometimes changing the circumstances is the growth, or both can be growth. And so there isn't a right or a wrong answer. And then asking your future self what they would advise you usually gives you a really simple answer really quickly. And then another strategy is maybe like, what is your life manifesto? What is it that you really want with your life? We often, and that's also asking your future self, but it's really almost asking your dying self what they would recommend. And so that may be much farther ahead, but what is it you think the point of being here is? Because we often think, oh, I want to accomplish this, or I want to do this. But when you look back at your life, what is it you want to do with your life? Is it enjoying things, being more present? Is it taking risks or growing or doing interesting things? We all have different things that come to the top of that list, and we should honor that, because there isn't a right or a wrong answer. And then digging into the thoughts, you always have to do first. So you can't just make the change. Like, it's not like either or. You have to dig into the thoughts and really look at them, knowing, as I talked about, that you'll take those thoughts and feelings with you wherever you go. So if you don't process them and figure out where they're coming from, for example, if you're a victim in this situation, you'll be a victim in the next situation. And many of us in the medical world have this kind of victim mentality. And so noticing where in all the parts of your life you see yourself as a victim, because you'll take that to your next relationship or your next job or your next city or whatever it might be. And so it's doing that work to see that you are not a victim, and doing that work, for those of you familiar with the term, like to get into emotional adulthood, which means that you own your part, even in what might be like an abusive relationship or a toxic work situation, which is one that you very well might decide to leave. And coaching doesn't say like, coach yourself to think that's okay. It helps you make a decision from a clean space. And so even owning your part in those relationships, how you got there, how you might be contributing, when you get to that spot, that's where you can then make a more clean decision. And then if you're thinking about making a change, you have to tap into the thoughts about, well, if I make this decision, I think I will feel this way. And it's like, well, why will I feel that way? What thoughts will I be thinking? And can you bring those thoughts here and now? And sometimes they don't work, and sometimes they're not believable, but maybe you can find something that's close to it. We often say in relationships that you want to find the love in the relationship you have. So you're coming at even making a change from a place of love. And so can you be, and sometimes you can't get back to that, but can you be okay in either situation, whether you stay or you go? Can you be content in either situation? So particularly like with a job, it's like, I could be okay here, but I want something different. And so thinking about also how you want to feel, and think those thoughts now and practice them so that you can start to feel that way and start to make decisions from that space rather than, if I change, I'll feel better. And then if you're going to come up with replacement thoughts, they have to be truly believable. So you can't just force yourself to think good thoughts. And that's where, say, in a abusive situation or a toxic work situation, and maybe it's not even that bad, but something you just want to change. Like, you sometimes don't want to change your thoughts. You don't want to say like, oh, that's okay with me. It doesn't bother me. Because your authentic self about what you want for your life, like if you consulted your future self, they would be like, nope, you should go. And So this idea of when you're ready to make a change comes back to my always favorite question, which is, what would love do? And so if love would change your thoughts to stay because you can be okay staying and that feels like the right answer, then that can be your answer. But that includes love for you, love for whoever the other person might be, love for, and it feels a little bit when you think about like a job, but love for the whole situation. And if your answer is that that would leave and would go do something else, love for sort of life and humanity in the world, then you probably shouldn't just be adapting your thoughts to like where you are. And so if you take your time, and so when you are ready to leave, or you are trying to decide, and I like to leave is like a word that comes up a lot, but it's also ready to make a change when you're going to, what I mean by that is change a circumstance. So if love would change the circumstance and you are not trying to change how you feel, you can love here, love there, but overall love would want a different circumstance, then that's probably where you want to go. You also, if you are choosing to make a change, you want to not be in a rush. There's no hurry. You have to feel all these feelings along the way, and you have to process them all and get out of victimhood, as I mentioned, and get out of emotional childhood. So own your role in it. And even be okay with where you are. And if you're not in a rush, so you're like, yes, I really want to leave this and I'm not in a rush and I've thought about it for 6 months and I still really feel that way and I'm not jumping to it because I'll feel better in some other situation, that is a good place to come from. And then if you, if you like your reasons, honestly like your reasons. And so your reasons generally that you like would be you genuinely want something different for your life. And so that's where I would go back to what I mentioned, the priority list. And so say your current circumstance is not compatible or incongruent with your priority list. So you can't spend time with your children, or you have to live in a city you don't want to live in, or you're doing, I don't know, surgery all day and you want to be a clinic doctor or whatever it might be. If it's incompatible with what you truly want for your life, you shouldn't change your thoughts to stay there, because that doesn't serve you and it's not growing. The other thing is that sometimes we feel like it's a failure to move on. And it doesn't have to be. Like your relationship with that person, your relationship with a job, that can all be complete, done, enough, and you might be ready for something new. So again, it's you genuinely want something new, and that you want to grow in a certain way, realizing that staying can also be growing. And so it's just that you actually want a very specific path. You're at this fork in the road and going right is what feels good to you. Not because you're looking for right to solve a problem, but because right is fun, interesting, what you want for your life. There was actually a recent Life Coach School podcast that offended a lot of people, and actually including me, because Brooke Castillo basically said that she'd left her marriage just because she wanted to, but she said it in this way, like, just because I wanted to. And I think that's what got people to sort of think like, well, that feels kind of selfish, but it is this idea that you are a human and you only get one life to live. And so you should really connect to what you want to do and live and experience, and be thoughtful about it. That's my only thought. Or maybe don't say it that way. I don't know. And then the other thought is that if you're in a situation, you've done the thought work, you've done the feeling work, and it just takes so much self-coaching to be in that situation. So you're constantly coaching yourself at work to make it okay, or you're constantly coaching yourself in a relationship and you're like, it can be okay if I do all this work, but that's not the life I want for the future. It's just too much effort. That would be a reason to say, well, okay, like you could make it okay, but you don't want to. And so it's getting back into the want. And then if it's actually toxic and you don't, it's not authentic for you to want to be in an abusive situation, then you shouldn't coach yourself to stay in it. For example, that one seems quite obvious, I think. So as long as you're not leaving to change how you feel, to escape, the other one is like to teach someone a lesson or have your needs met. Like I'll meet my needs if I go somewhere else, or someone else will meet my needs and this person doesn't. Then leaving can be the right choice. There isn't also, I would point out, a right choice. Like we get to decide whether it's a right choice or not. And so when you make a decision, you just own it as that's the decision I made. Knowing that almost always when we make a decision, we decide it's not a good decision initially, and we flip back and forth. And that doesn't mean you've done something wrong. That's just what our brain does. It's like a safety habit that we're like, that's not a good idea because I'm going into unknown territory. And so realizing that there is just this, it's just an automatic thing in your brain, and it doesn't mean you've made a wrong decision, and that self-doubt is normal, but that you get to choose once you've made a decision to change something to make it the right decision. And so spinning into those, what we call indulgent emotions, where you're like, well, I don't know if it's the right decision and maybe I made a mistake and all that, that doesn't serve you either. And so once you've decided, you move forward and you're deciding from a place of intention. And then I think another good place to make a decision is like when you see that there's a cost to staying and a cost to going, and there's growth staying and growth going, and that there's good staying and good going, and bad staying and bad going, then you're making a decision from intention. So all of that process, which is a lot of things to process, and really they're just kind of things to think about. And the key point is that you need to process the thoughts and the feelings and feel them, and not be changing just to avoid something or to feel better, and that you've really worked through all of it. And then that there is no right decision, like whether to change your thoughts or change your circumstance. You just get to pick, but you're doing it from this place of mindfulness. That's the spaciousness to process everything and make a really grounded, authentic, calm decision that you allow yourself time to process. So there's no hurry. There's no hurry to leave a job. There's no hurry to leave a relationship. And I know for many of you that have coached with me for a while, like you get to this point somewhere along the line, you're like, oh, now I'm ready. Like I feel like I can see a different path. And you get there in time because you've done the work and you've processed the feelings and you've processed the thoughts and you've figured out where you are and what you actually want. And you're not coming from a graspy place of like, I just need to fix this. I'm so overwhelmed, frustrated, angry, resentful. You're coming from a very grounded, calm space. And from that space, it's 100% okay to change something. And obviously, our lives are full of change, and you don't necessarily want to stay somewhere that's also not working for you. So I'm curious if people have thoughts on what but look at all the choices. Just see it as a plethora of choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of options. Like I could get a long-term locum in my family practice so I can do less, and yeah, I can build up the psychotherapy hours over time. Yeah.
So what if that actually is where I think you should go? It's like, what are all the options? What if
not
it's
just
not
two?
An either or? What are like, write down 30 options. Not to like confuse yourself, but it might be clear. Then like, no, I like this one, or like, so there's no scarcity of choice.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
I don't know what your brain will decide, but. All right, I'm gonna, let's see. I was gonna, Joni, do you wanna, I don't see you on my screen, but if you wanna unmute and talk, then you'll show up.